This story is titled, My Girlfriend Told Me She Wants an Open Relationship Out of Nowhere. I'm not okay with it, but she says I'm being controlling. Is this a sign I should end things? When Mia and I first met, it felt like one of those once-in-a-lifetime connections that people write songs about. My name is Jake. I'm 36, and I live in a quiet suburb just outside of Chicago. Mia, who's 34, moved into my neighborhood 3 years ago, and we met at a local coffee shop. She was radiant, with this magnetic energy that drew everyone in. I couldn't believe it when she agreed to go on a date with me. Our relationship grew quickly. Within a few months, we were inseparable. We laughed at the same jokes, shared a love for long walks in the park, and spent hours talking about everything from our childhoods to our dreams for the future. I thought we were building something solid, a foundation for a life together. That's why, when Mia brought up the idea of an open relationship, it felt like the floor had been ripped out from under me. It started on a Friday evening. We were sitting on the couch, a bottle of wine between us, the glow of the TV flickering in the background. I thought it was going to be one of our usual cozy nights in, but Mia had a strange look on her face. "Jake," she said, her tone unusually serious. "Can we talk about something?" My stomach tightened. Those words, "Can we talk?" rarely lead anywhere good. "Of course," I said, setting my glass down. "What's on your mind?" She hesitated, biting her lip. "I've been thinking a lot lately about us, about our relationship and what I want for the future." Alarm bells started ringing in my head. "Okay," I said cautiously. "I love you, Jake," she began, and I could feel the but coming a mile away. "But I've been wondering if maybe we could explore other connections. You know, like an open relationship." For a moment, I didn't even know how to respond. My brain felt like it was short-circuiting. "An open relationship?" I repeated, as if saying the words out loud would make them make more sense. "Yes," she said, her eyes searching mine for some kind of understanding. "I think it could be a way for us to grow, to experience new things without losing what we have together." I stared at her, my heart pounding in my chest. "Mia, I don't understand. Are you unhappy with me?" "No," she said quickly, reaching for my hand. "It's not that at all. I love what we have, but I've been reading about this, and some people say it can actually strengthen a relationship. It's about trust and freedom, Jake. Don't you want us to be the best version of ourselves?" Her words sounded rehearsed, like she had been preparing for this conversation for weeks. I felt a wave of anger and confusion rising in me. "Mia, I don't need to explore other connections to be the best version of myself. I thought we were happy. I thought we were enough for each other." She sighed, looking frustrated. "We are happy, but this isn't about not being enough. It's about expanding our horizons. You're acting like I'm saying I want to leave you, but that's not it at all." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Mia, how do you expect me to be okay with this? The idea of you with someone else, it makes me sick to my stomach. That's not trust. That's not freedom. That's betrayal." Her expression hardened. "You're being closed-minded, Jake. Lots of people make this work. It's not about betrayal, it's about honesty and communication. If you can't even consider it, maybe that says more about you than it does about me." Her words hit me like a slap in the face. Closed-minded? Was I being unreasonable for wanting a monogamous relationship? For wanting what we had promised each other when we first got together? That night, I barely slept. My mind raced with questions. Had she been thinking about this for a long time? Was there someone specific she already had in mind? And worst of all, was this the beginning of the end for us? The next morning, I tried to bring it up again, hoping we could have a calmer conversation. "Mia," I said as we sat at the kitchen table, "I need to understand where this is coming from. Why now? Why do you suddenly want this?" She hesitated, avoiding my gaze. "I've just been thinking about it for a while. I've read stories about couples who do this and say it brings them closer together. I thought it might be something we could try." "But why?" I pressed. "What's missing in our relationship that makes you want this?" She finally looked at me, her eyes filled with a mix of frustration and something I couldn't quite identify. "Nothing is missing, Jake. That's the point. I don't want this because of something we lack. I want to feel free to experience life fully, and I want you to feel that way too." Her words sounded noble on the surface, but they didn't feel noble. They felt like a betrayal of everything we had built together. I leaned back in my chair, rubbing my temples. "Mia, I don't know if I can do this. The idea of sharing you with someone else, it goes against everything I believe in." She sighed, her expression softening. "I'm not trying to hurt you, Jake. I thought you'd understand." In the days that followed, things between us grew tense. Every conversation felt loaded, every moment together overshadowed by the question hanging in the air. Could I give her what she wanted, or was this the beginning of the end? I found myself confiding in my older sister, Emily, who had always been my go-to for advice. Emily, I said, pacing her living room, Mia wants an open relationship. She says it's not about me. But how can it not be? How can she claim to love me and still want to be with other people? Emily listened patiently, her expression a mix of sympathy and concern. Jake, she said finally, you need to think about what you want. If you're not okay with this, and it sounds like you're not, then you need to be honest with yourself and with her. Relationships are about shared values. If yours don't align anymore, that's not something you can force. Her words stayed with me long after I left her house. I realized that, deep down, I already knew the answer. I just wasn't ready to face it yet. One evening, Mia and I sat down to talk again. I could feel the weight of everything unsaid pressing down on us. Mia, I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. I've been thinking a lot about what you said, about the open relationship. She looked at me hopefully, as if she thought I was about to agree. I can't do it, I said, the words spilling out before I could second-guess myself. I love you and I want to be with you, but I can't share you with someone else. That's not the kind of relationship I want. Her face fell, and for a moment I thought she might argue, but instead she nodded slowly. I understand, she said quietly. I guess we want different things. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I had been hoping, praying that she would change her mind, that she would choose us over this sudden desire for freedom. But deep down, I knew this was the end. We decided to take some time apart, to figure out what we both wanted. As I packed a bag and prepared to leave, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was leaving a piece of my heart behind. The days that followed were some of the hardest of my life. I missed Mia desperately, but I also felt a sense of clarity I hadn't felt in weeks. I realized that loving someone sometimes means letting them go, especially when staying together means compromising who you are. When I left, Mia and I agreed to take a break from each other to think things through. I wasn't sure if I was ready to walk away from everything we had, but I knew deep down that I couldn't continue in a relationship that no longer felt like the one I had signed up for. It was painful. My heart felt like it was being torn in two. In the days that followed, I tried to busy myself with work, but every quiet moment reminded me of her. I missed the small things, the sound of her laugh, the way her hand fit perfectly in mine. But in the silence, I also began to realize how much I had compromised myself in the relationship, how much I had been willing to bend, thinking that love was enough. And yet, love couldn't bridge this gap between us. I spent a lot of time talking to Emily, who continued to be my rock during this emotional roller coaster. Jake, she said one night as we sat on her porch, I know you're torn, but you need to be true to yourself. If you can't give her what she needs and she can't give you what you need, then no amount of love will make it work. Her words echoed in my mind. I wasn't being selfish for wanting a monogamous relationship. I wasn't wrong for needing commitment. But Mia, she was different. She wanted something more, something that I just couldn't provide. After a week of constant back and forth in my mind, I called Mia. My fingers trembled as I dialed her number, and my heart raced in my chest. Mia, can we talk? I asked when she picked up. Of course, she said, her voice soft. I've been thinking a lot about you, about us. I have too, I replied. I didn't want to drag this out any longer. The pain of being apart from her was unbearable, but I also knew I couldn't keep holding on if we were never going to be on the same page. I don't want an open relationship, Mia. I just can't do it. I love you, but I can't share you with anyone else. I need someone who's all in, like I am, I said, my voice cracking with emotion. There was a long pause before she responded. I understand, Jake. I do. It was a lot to ask, I know. And maybe I pushed too hard. Her voice trembled, as though she, too, was fighting to hold back tears. But you're right. We want different things. It felt like my heart had shattered all over again. I had hoped that she might have a change of heart, that somehow we could find a way to make it work. But deep down, I knew that her desire for something different was something I couldn't change. We spent the next hour talking, but it wasn't the same. It was a goodbye wrapped in understanding, the kind of conversation that you never want to have but know is inevitable. We both knew that this was the end. The hardest part came later when I returned to the apartment we had shared. It was empty now, just me and the echoes of the life we had built together. I stood there, in the middle of the living room, surrounded by memories. There were pictures on the walls, books on the shelves, and the smell of her perfume still lingering in the air. But there was also a space that had been left behind, a void that no amount of cleaning or packing could fill. I spent the next few weeks in a haze of emotion. I threw myself into my work, trying to distract myself from the pain. But no matter how hard I tried, Mia was always on my mind. Her absence was a constant ache in my chest, and I found myself longing for a future that would never come. But there were moments when the clarity I had been searching for began to settle in. I knew I couldn't keep blaming her for wanting something different. She wasn't wrong for wanting what she wanted. She was honest with me, and for that, I couldn't hold any resentment. But I also knew that her desires didn't align with mine, and I wasn't going to change that. The decision wasn't easy, but in time, I realized that I had made the right choice. I wasn't going to settle for something that didn't feel right. I wasn't going to compromise my values for the sake of keeping someone in my life. As weeks turned into months, I slowly began to heal. The emptiness in my chest faded, replaced by a sense of peace that I hadn't felt in a long time. I had spent so much of my life giving pieces of myself away, trying to make relationships work at any cost. But now, for the first time in a long time, I was learning how to put myself first. I found comfort in knowing that love wasn't about forcing someone to stay when they wanted something different. It wasn't about sacrificing your own happiness for the sake of someone else's. Love, at its core, is about mutual respect and shared dreams. And Mia and I simply didn't share the same dreams anymore. I didn't regret our time together. Mia taught me a lot about myself, about what I was willing to accept and what I was unwilling to compromise. But it was time to move on, to let go of the relationship and start building a life that was true to who I was. As for Mia, I hoped she would find what she was looking for. I hoped she would be happy, even if it wasn't with me. I had always wanted the best for her, and that feeling didn't change just because our paths had diverged. Looking back, I realized that this experience had changed me. I had learned that sometimes love isn't enough to make a relationship work. Sometimes two people grow in different directions, and the best thing you can do is let them go. Holding on too tight can create pain, but letting go can open the door to something new. As for me, I knew I wasn't ready for another relationship just yet. I needed to find myself again, to rediscover what made me happy outside of someone else. I had spent too much time trying to build my happiness around another person. Now, it was time to build it for myself. If my story resonates with you, like, comment, and subscribe. Your support means everything to me. Thank you for sharing in this journey with me.